When are we getting Battlefront 3? Is there going to be a Battlefront 3? Where is Battlefront 3, Mr. Andrew Wilson? These are all questions that I see day in, day out and have done for well over a year now. Now, depending on who you ask, some people will say that Battlefront 3 is literally just a matter of time. Others say Battlefront 3 is just flat out not happening. Some of them have solid grounds to believe that it won't. Some of them just make stuff up and quote interviews that never happened to push their case. Whatever side of the argument you are on, the common ground found between the two sides is Battlefront 3 is in high demand, and it has been since Battlefront 2 came to an end. So once the ship had sailed that Battlefront 2's live service wasn't coming back despite all the outrage and petitions, the immediate attention went to the sequel, and after all of this time as a content creator in this space who lives it, breathes it, day in, day out, I can sit here and objectively say that the majority of people across the board want Battlefront 3. You know, of course we want Fallen Order sequel, we want the KOTOR remake, but Battlefront 3 across the board, the majority of people just want it. There is of course going to be those people that watch this and disagree with that, but I mean it's not really out of the ordinary for people to disagree with fact. What I'm saying is people want Battlefront 3, and in this video I'm going to tell you why Battlefront 3 will happen. Despite the absence of any Star Wars game reveals at EA Play Live this year and the Battlefront 2 hero designer moving on from his role at DICE, which literally just happened. Now, I've titled this video something along the lines of why Battlefront 3 will happen, and a lot of you are probably wondering if I have the inside scoop that maybe my dad's uncle Derek's Goldfish works at EA and told me everything. Unfortunately, that's not the case, but I've just got a little bit of common sense in play here and have been digging into this topic for a long time, done a lot of research, and I think I've found the situation we'll end up facing in the coming months and years, regarding the Battlefront franchise specifically. And I've yet to talk about pretty much all of this on the channel before, so for those saying I'm just doing an old video again,
shut up, bitch!
Now, I want to quickly address that thing that happened on Twitter regarding Battlefront 2. I think at the time of recording, it was a fair few weeks ago now. EA Star Wars Twitter page has been pretty much a big talking point in recent videos, with them tweeting the worst news we have seen since Battlefront 2 came to an end, with there being no Star Wars game news at EA Play Live this year, and the wait for anything Star Wars games is going to have to just go on for another year. But before they announced that, they did put a pretty rare tweet up about Battlefront 2 on Twitter, which they do not really do, like ever. It's kind of become a meme at this point how much they ignore Battlefront. Since Battlefront 2 came to an end, whether intentional or unintentional, they've acted like Battlefront 2 never existed. At least that's how fans see it. Now, they did tweet this a fair few weeks ago now, so the tinfoil hats came out and people saw that because they asked for 3 of people's favourite maps in Battlefront 2, people went all detective mode. They asked for favourite maps and asked for 3 of them. Could this be a message within a message, everyone said? No, I don't think so personally. If you want to run with it, then go for it. I'm not buying it. I'm not going to ruin your fun. But as stupid as it sounds, a tweet like this in some weird twisted way is actually progress. That's how ignored this franchise has been lately. And it is leading people on to believe that this could be the start of things to come for Star Wars games. Now, look, obviously, I don't have a crystal ball and anything realistically can happen. And I think the past year and a half has taught all of us that. But I am very confident that we will be seeing Battlefront 3, and hopefully sooner rather than later. Now, why is that? Well, first, let's go back to Battlefront 2 for a second to just give us a little bit of context with what we're going to talk about. Battlefront 2 had the potential to be one of EA's biggest post-launch earners after its initial launch. Despite the controversy, the game did sell relatively well, but the meat and potatoes of the game's money was always going to be made with its microtransactions, which isn't uncommon for modern games. The problem with Battlefront 2, it was just the way that they were implemented, and that was in a pay-to-win format, which obviously is not good. Now, we know the story, so I'm not going to beat you over the head with it, but Battlefront 2's loot box fiasco meant that Battlefront 2 was playing catch-up with its post-launch content for pretty much its entire lifespan, as the developers had to spend months after the game's launch revamping the progression system. And we know this for sure as well, as there was a ton of content the game was actually supposed to get but never did, such as the bunch of female heroes that the design director said would come to the game, and the voice line interactions for heroes like Ahsoka Tano, all of which we never ended up seeing in the game because, again, they were put on the back foot from day one. They couldn't deliver everything they wanted to. Now, as a result of this, DICE were never able to get the game to a point where Battlefront 2 could have made a ton of money off of regular cosmetic drops like most games do. Skins were not exactly being pumped out by the developers, and because of this, and this was a pretty big issue throughout Battlefront 2's lifespan that a lot of people talked about, when they did actually drop skins, people already had a ton of credits stacked up anyway, so they never would have had to buy any in-game currency to purchase the skins with real money. Now, this is obviously a massive missed financial opportunity for EA, and it was their own doing as to why they never got to capitalize on this. Moral of the story is, Battlefront 2's launch fiasco, if it never happened and DICE were able to pump out skins regularly, because they weren't on the back foot from day one, then Battlefront 2 would probably still be going successfully to this very day. So this is where Battlefront 3 would come into the equation. The success of Battlefront 2, despite all the dramas, proved to EA that the fan base is strong, and the release of the Celebration Edition of the game proved that people would happily spend a bit of money if things were going well. Now, if EA made a Battlefront 3, one would assume they get it right from the get-go this time. Battlefront 2015 had its issues, and Battlefront 2 rectified most of them, but it just had the pay-to-win mechanic holding it back. So Battlefront 3, theoretically, should be done right from the start, and if it is, then damn, EA gotta buckle up because they're gonna be making a lot of money. Now, this brings me on to another one of several reasons why Battlefront 3 will happen, in my opinion. Apex Legends just became a billion-dollar franchise in recent months, a game that is free to play. We're seeing a lot of games do this, make the game free, set up a battle pass or cosmetic microtransaction system, and boom, you have an accessible, live service multiplayer game that makes money without crossing any ethical line. And I think Battlefront 3 would suit this formula so well. And given Apex Legends' success and the fact that it is obviously an EA game and the general trends of the industry these days, I think it's something EA would be highly considering for their next Battlefront installment. And I think if they do that, they'd most likely drop the single player campaign from Battlefront 3 and make it a straight up multiplayer experience, because that's what everyone is ultimately there for. Not a disposable 5-hour campaign that you play once and you don't touch it ever again, even though you play the game almost every day for the following 3 years. So that's an option I think would land EA in a goldmine for Battlefront 3, and even if it isn't Battlefront 3, maybe that rumored Battlefront spin-off, keep in mind, a free-to-play game would suit the audiences that this game will target, which is mainly kids. I mean, it's one of the reasons Fortnite done so well. It's why Apex has done so well. It's why so many modern multiplayer games do so well these days. But that's not the only reason why I firmly believe we will see a Battlefront 3 from EA, and this is probably the strongest reason as to why. EA loves bankable franchises. Think FIFA, Madden, Battlefield, Battlefront, UFC games, hell, The Sims. We see new EA games from the same old franchises every single year. Year after year, we get that annual sports game. EA are far more likely to create more games from established franchises that have proven themselves to make money rather than go for an entirely new property. EA have released 4 Star Wars games. 3 of those are in the top 4 selling Star Wars games of all time as of the end of 2020. 2 of those being Battlefront at number 2 and 3. We've already seen what they did when Jedi Fallen Order sold so well. They greenlit it to be a franchise, so I think it's way more likely to see a Battlefront 3 than a brand new project. Now, we must also address the elephant in the room here, the Star Wars license exclusivity and what little time EA has with it. Realistically, EA don't have that long to go until the Star Wars license officially opens up entirely to other publishers, and then it's just the wild west of Star Wars games. They could come from anywhere. Now, it is entirely possible that in the negotiations of their contract with Lucasfilm that EA said something like, fine, we'll no longer hold exclusivity as of 2023, but we want to maintain rights to make Battlefront games and Jedi Fallen Order games, like that's their franchise. Now, obviously that's just me spitballing, but the moral of the story is this. If EA do not make a Battlefront sequel, or at least have one in development by 2023 when the license officially opens up completely, then someone else is going to take advantage of that and do it themselves. Either way, we're going to get a new Battlefront game. If EA don't lock in that Battlefront franchise and make a new Battlefront game and do it soon, then someone else sure as hell is going to. It's a guaranteed moneymaker, it's established, it's been successful despite almost everything going against it in the past 5 to 6 years. It's a no-brainer. Now tie this in with DICE's schedule, who are of course the development team behind Battlefront and Battlefield. With a couple of years to go until the rights open up, now would be the perfect time to begin the foundations for a Battlefront 3. This year, DICE will be releasing their new Battlefield game, which was of course the game that came at the expense of Battlefront 2. And one would imagine they don't need their entire team to work on post-launch content, so it would be perfect timing to move some of the team onto their next project, and the logical choice would be the next Battlefront installment. This would allow EA to keep their finger in the Battlefront pie before anyone else can dip their toes into Star Wars games, specifically Battlefront in 2023. And of course, you've got to keep in mind the absence of Star Wars games at EA Play Live in 2021. This gives developers another year to have something to show at the next EA Play Live event, which would tie in perfectly schedule-wise to have this game announced in 2022 before the Star Wars license goes through changes in 2023. So I would not be surprised in the slightest if EA's only contribution to Star Wars games post 2023 are just for Jedi Fallen Order as a franchise and Battlefront as a franchise. There has been times where it's been made known that the new head honchos in place at EA didn't want the Star Wars IP, but they were kind of stuck in the contract. But then on the other side of the equation, you have the current CEO of EA, Andrew Wilson, saying that they love Star Wars and have a great relationship with Lucasfilm, which, to be fair, I think is actually quite true, seeing the way the Star Wars license expansion went down. If things were bad behind closed doors like a lot of journalists claim between EA and Lucasfilm, they probably would have cut ties in a much messier way than what was revealed in January with the Lucasfilm Games announcement. EA just would not come out and say that they're committed to making more games and then tweet 6-7 months later that they're going to be revealing more in EA Play Live 2022. So I think EA are just past the point of expanding Star Wars games under their umbrella. I strongly believe they're going to stick with the two franchises that are basically guaranteed to be financially successful, those being the Jedi Fallen Order franchise, or however that gets branded going forward, and of course, the Battlefront franchise. At this point, I basically just think a Battlefront 3 is beyond a complete no-brainer. I know the developers at DICE were pretty heartbroken when Battlefront 2 came to an end, and they'd be jumping at the chance to work on Star Wars again, and I'd love to be able to see those developers get that chance to make the ultimate Battlefront game that they came so close to achieving with Battlefront 2. So in summary, I firmly believe we will see a Battlefront 3 announcement sometime within the next 12 to 18 months, maybe sooner. Obviously, I don't expect the game to be released for a few years though. These games don't happen overnight, but if EA do not take this opportunity with Battlefront 3 that is literally staring them right in the face with a big red cape and big ass dollar signs, then someone else, as of 2023, absolutely will. So guys, those are my thoughts on the current Battlefront 3 situation. Now stop asking me. I want to turn it over to you guys now though. What do you think of the elusive Battlefront 3 title that we've been after since the mid to late 2000s? Do you think we will see it? Or do you think EA are going to ignore it until someone else swoops in and does what they should have done the entire time? Let me know down in the comments below. And of course, remember to drop a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and remember to subscribe to the channel, as even though the Star Wars game news isn't going our way at the moment, we're not going anywhere. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys real soon.